The most important aspect for having an effective DR is to consider DR as a subset of BCP, what it really is. It shouldn't lose its business centricity.
We must have a disaster recovery plan, we should have a disaster recovery handbook, and we should have all the facilities organized and managed and executed in the remote disaster recovery site comparable to the primary site.
You need the right level of visibility, you need tools to provide the visibility to be able to make sure you're meeting the metric, recovery metric that you've defined. If you've not, you can mediate and figure out, remediate and go figure out what's wrong and go fix it.
Involvement of the top, that's a must for any successful program when it's standardization of BCP or DR, whatever it is.
Most of the time organizations go for the best systems, but the process also designed, but there is nobody to ensure the processes are maintained.
Disaster recovery and disaster management are in highest priority for a company like us because we have a very large transaction. For example, last year we did a sale of more than 3,28,000 crores. If you translate into every minute transaction, it comes to 3 crores. That's a huge amount. We can't afford to say that we have lost only 1 minute data.
Important concern areas where we are setting up data centers across the country and you want to have disaster recovery sites. One important aspect is you're going to have different storage areas. And I have to ensure that the disaster recovery solution that I take on the other side, how is it able to have the capabilities of different storage areas mapped onto the other side.
We are in an evolving stage. There's a lot of adoption that has happened and there's a lot of visibility that is getting executive level visibility for DR, which is heartening to see and I think bodes well for the overall recovery from the government perspective, PSU's perspective and the private organizations.
We need to equally focus on all the 3 aspects of people, process and technology. Take our case. We have 3 data centers. The data center 1 takes care of the hardware failures. In spite of this, there is a possibility of failure due to man-made errors. We have a near site data center where we will sync the data only after 4 hours. There may be natural disaster, maybe earthquake or a flood or total power failures. Then that's why we have a 3rd data center in Bangalore, which is having an equal computing power as well as communication facilities so that end users can continue to work the way he works with the productive data center.
Of course, technology is the vehicle on which every business is running today. But first, business should tell what are its priorities, what it wants. Otherwise, we end up sometimes in overkill. We create storages, we create capacities, we create redundancies at a huge cost, only 20% of which we need.
Aspects like criticality of an application become extremely important. How do I ensure a state has to categorize the applications into critical, non-critical, data critical, not critical, and then choose the mix and match of technologies.
Customers should not choose technologies first, they should choose an approach, a framework, put a process in place, and then the technology would naturally evolve.
There are nowadays multiple options. One is you have your own disaster recovery site set up for your data center and have your own network link, your own servers, your own software, everything. Second is to hand it over to an outsourced agency to manage the whole thing. Third is to not to have a disaster recovery center, but use the facility provided by a big corporation like IBM or HP or Microsoft on the cloud to replicate your original data center resources.
If that is so, I have to see, because you may not be having a disaster recovery site having the same cloud solution, or it may not be having the same number of compute available with you. Under this environment, how do I ensure that the applications and data which are either on physical or on cloud, they can be seamlessly available and they are disaster recovery?
The organizations which have an enterprise-wide risk assessment, ERM process, they can do BCP planning also better. It is similar. If we have an integrated enterprise-wide priority assessment, risk assessment, we can have better DR.
So how do I use that DR in an effective way even when there is no disaster. I think the beautiful thing is to use it for reporting, extensive reports that you want to generate. So if you can at the end of the day move your live data into that and have the reports churned out, while there is no disaster, you will be ensuring not only the uptime, but also you will ensure that at the time of drill or at the time of disaster, there are no issues and concerns.
In the night 12 o'clock, whatever the transaction we have taken place that particular day, it has been made as a split mirror backup. It is mounted on my reporting servers. So the next day morning, when the end users goes for the transaction, it goes to productive site. Whenever it goes for reporting, it goes to reporting services which is coming from disaster recovery center. In this process, we are able to keep the data consistency and concurrency.
So you have got 100 applications running on 100 platforms, 100 softwares. Managing a disaster situation becomes equally difficult. So it is better that your enterprise IT architect should be a person who loves homogeneity. So you should have a homogeneous kind of an architecture.
Disaster doesn't strike with a notice period. So in our sector, we are pushing this point forward. We are trying to move to a situation where we reduce the RTO considerably, and without notice, banking sector should be able to do at least deliver the basic services. Payment systems should run, and the DR drills for the same should be either without notice or with the least possible notice. And number two, normally the DR drills in India of any business are done on low peak days. So what about the peak load?
If you automate the process, it dramatically reduces the amount of time, and hence you're able to do drills much more easier.
Drills should be regularly conducted because your applications keep changing, your processes keep changing, so that the disaster recovery sites are aligned to the processes which you are following in production.
Practically every day we do a disaster mock drill compared to any other companies. That gives the people will be always familiar with the technology, familiar with the operation.
The people, the human resource is a very important factor at the time of strike of disaster, because they have to know that what they have to do, they have to follow a standard operating procedure.
So we have this in focus. In banking sector, we have a comfort. From the technology viewpoint, we have a robust backup. Each bank is having DR center. This BCP-DR aspect of the banking sector is now part of the financial stability quarterly discussions. So we are taken to that level, so that shows the importance is taken, and all banks are cooperating, but still we have a long way to go forward to achieve that.